Welcome back to Brokers of Secrets. Now, in this episode, we're going to talk about how most people have no idea that their reality is actually their creation, and that includes all the conflicts and all of the chaos, so that we, by knowing that, can actually resolve them before they get projected. Now, you can actually even resolve them in the midst of a chaos or conflict if you knew how to resolve them. Now, how many of you have something you'd like to remove out of your life that's causing you problems, stress, anxiety, whatever it is, right? See, instead of addressing just the signal, which remember, the emotions, the negative emotions, the stress, those are just signals. What's stress? Stress simply tells you that the internal resourcefulness of the moment is less than the external demand. So you need to get more resourceful. But there are no unresourceful people, only unresourceful states. But how are these states formed? How are these emotional state or mental state formed? Mental states, right? How are they formed? Well, the secret here is their mental program and the buffer. Let's talk about the buffer for a moment. Again, the buffer is the layer between your mind and your reality. Now, there are different names for it, different words that describe this, but I'm giving to you in such an easy way. I want you to consider between your mind and your reality, there's a buffer where things go from mental creation into physical creation, or even spiritual creation, and then mental, and then, becoming physical. When you understand what the buffer does, the buffer is a place where you can tweak and optimize what is going on before you send it into physical creation, full physical creation, and becoming actualized, right? Imagine if you didn't have a buffer. Imagine if every kid who thinks of a boogeyman and boogeyman shows up instantly. The world will be chaos, right? So that's not what's happening. What's happening is there's a buffer. And the buffer allows us to think certain thoughts, really play it out, really focus on them, tweak them, optimize them before it gets projected into the world. And that's what the buffer is for. It allows you time, allows you the experience of being able to upgrade whatever it is that you're holding in your mind, allows you to make last minute decisions that could change things. But also keep in mind, if you have chaos and conflict with other people, the source and the root of it is actually inside your mind. And now, you may say, William, I don't know how to look at my buffer and understand what's going on in my mind so that I can resolve this conflict. I'm going to give you a really easy formula. Test it. Find out if it works. Find out if it's real. Don't just take it for face value. Don't just believe me. Test it. See, everything we teach in Upgrade is about testing. Being able to test it whether you believe or not, believing is not actually important. We want to take you from believing to knowing. So you need to test it. Even if you fully do not believe it, allow yourself to test it. Because when you test it, even with that mind of, I don't believe this will work, you'll find out, right? So when you consider, first off, when there's a conflict in your life, it's actually what's been put through the buffer, and it shows up in the physical, right? But there's a deeper secret to that. If there's conflict and chaos, likely there was conflict and chaos emotionally. You felt it before. It was in the buffer. But you didn't know what to do. So ignoring that feeling of chaos or stress even, that feeling of conflict internally is not the way. Ignoring it is not the way, because the feeling showed up in the first place to warn you so that you can address it. And when you didn't, it showed up in the physical. It passed through the buffer and it showed up in the physical. Think of it as simply as when you get an emotional signal, yeah, from, let's say, your mind, right? Of course, but we're going to give you a metaphor. Let's say your phone gives you an alert saying that it's overheating. Because one time I had my phone overheating. And funny enough, I chose to continue to use it. Now, this is back at some point when they would not shut down the phone, but it let you continue to use it. Yeah. And it wasn't like it was saying, hey, phone's overheating, but I could see and feel, right? I could feel that my phone was really hot, and I could see how the processes was slower. But I'm like, hey, it's not giving me any warning. I'm going to continue to use it. And I mean, it's the weirdest thing, but is it really that weird? My phone actually shut down and wouldn't turn back on. I took it to the phone company, and I was like, hey, my phone shut down and wouldn't turn on again. They're like, oh, that's weird. They tried everything. And then they open up the phone, and they're like, oh, the motherboard fried. Now, how many of us allow ourselves to get to the point of complete burnout, complete shutdown, panic attack, or whatever it is, to the point of, I cannot bear it anymore? How many of us let ourselves do that, right? And then we wonder why in our lives there are problems. See, emotions are supposed to be understood, but not the emotion itself alone. It's the message behind it. So if you want to resolve conflicts and or challenges and or obstacles and or seems like you have enemies and or you have these major conflict in areas of your life, you need to understand, what have you not resolved emotionally? Which means, what are these hidden messages that your mind has been actually wanting you in a not so hidden way, wanting you to resolve, wanting you to be aware of and to pay attention, but you have not. So in simpler words, if you have chaos and conflict in your life, you're not listening to yourself. Think about that for one more moment. If you have chaos and conflict in your life, you didn't listen to yourself. You may say, hey, William, I didn't hear anything. That's the problem. You were too distracted, too busy, too hardworking, or whatever it was, that you did not pay attention to the signals. The signal from your subconscious mind, from your mind giving you that warning. You may say, well, how do you prove that? We don't need to, because what we're going to do is we begin to learn how to pay attention to that in two ways. And you will find out for yourself if it's real, right? This is the test part. So 2 ways. One way is if you're in the midst of experiencing conflict, or problems, you can simply ask yourself this key question. What emotion am I feeling right now? Now you may say, William, I'm not feeling anything. Then you likely dissociated from the emotion. So you need to let yourself feel whatever that feeling is. Because then you're now checking the signal, and then you can ask yourself, what can I learn from this feeling so that I can let go of it? Because the messenger is the emotion, but it's not the actual message. It's just a message delivery mechanism. It's a messenger, yeah? So when you got the messenger goes away. If you tell the messenger to go away, does not mean you've got the message, right? You need to get the message for the messenger to actually naturally go away. So if you have conflict, chaos, problems, you need to check, what am I feeling right now? And then what can I learn from it so I can let go of this feeling, this problem? When you resolve it, you may notice, this is not a guarantee, disclaimer, not a guarantee, you may notice that your physical result becomes a mirror of what you just resolved. And that feeling of peace and ease and that things are resolved and you feel good actually creates It's not just creates, but it's the resonance that you need to create what you want. So if you have problems and chaos, look inside. Don't just look outside and take action. Not just that. You need to look inside at the same time, simultaneously, and ask yourself, what can I learn from this message? After, of course, asking yourself and understanding what you're feeling and associating into the actual feelings just enough so you can resolve it. Yeah. Next, when you notice that there's a problem that has repeated itself for who knows how long, you may notice that you're in a loop. And most people, listen carefully, most people have a loop of creating problems. This is a very common loop. Most people have a loop of creating stress. Most people have a loop of creating chaos. However, it doesn't have to be you. Now you may say, William, isn't that part of life to have chaos and problem and conflict? Is it? Let me ask you, who taught you that this is part of life? Who taught you? How do you know that having a harmonious experience in life, a pleasant experience of life, always full of happiness and gratitude and people wanting to help you, opportunities naturally falling into your laps? How do you know that abundant state is not the natural state and that you were actually born abundantly, but you were installed limitations? You need to become aware that that is actually the truth when you are wanting to resolve conflict and other problems in your life. These conflicts and chaos are not the natural state. The natural state is harmonious abundance. Now, you may say, William, how do you know that? The truth is, if you accept that as a mental program, it becomes the filter of your buffer. You don't have to experience what other people say it's true for them. This reality that you experience is subjective. You get to decide the rules. But if you accept other victims' rules and allow those rules to rule your reality, you also become a victim. You become someone who experiences conflict, chaos, and problems. You don't have to be that. You get to choose your rules. This is when the slave moves beyond even the heroes, step into the emperor or even the wizard's journey. Now, again, if you are not aware that there's an internal-external connection, in fact, they're so intimate, some even say there is nothing outside. And everything you experience is internal, and you have the ability to influence just about everything. Not until then, you're still asleep. You are asleep if you don't realize you have so much more influence than you really have been taught. Now, this isn't some conspiracy about somebody intentionally teaching you that you're limited. However, you, because it doesn't matter now, you being aware of what I just said, have the responsibility to wake up from that deep sleep. You have the responsibility to realize that your thoughts, when focused frequently and intensely enough, can enter the buffer. And if you find yourself designing this magnificent reality and it's not happening, and instead you're creating chaos and problems and challenges, like you set some wonderful goals, but you keep hitting barriers or obstacles, well, it's not the nature of reality. You're just experiencing the outcome of flawed mental programs. Programs that create conflicts and problems. You accepted it from other people who may likely mean well. Because think about how many parents or grandparents have told you, life is hard. How many? Think about that. If you accept that as the primary rule of life and that people are not nice, you are going to experience that filtering the good people out, filtering the kind acts of people, filtering your reality in such a way that causes chaos, causes problems, causes conflicts. So let me say this. If you experience so much conflict and chaos and problems and you want to resolve them, instead of just taking massive action to do it, you need to start at the root cause and resolve it from the inside. And I'm going to finish off with this metaphor you may or may not have heard of before. Let's say you plug this podcast that you're playing on your phone or your tablet or computer onto a big screen or a projector. What gets projected on the projector screen came from your phone or tablet or laptop, right? Let's say it's a laptop. If you change what's on the laptop, it changes what's showing up on the screen, changes the projection. But not everyone knows that, especially if you take this to the 1800s. Most people would not be able to figure out that the laptop, right away, they wouldn't be able to figure out, oh, this laptop's connected to the projector, therefore it's projecting what's on the laptop. They may not know that. They cannot logically understand that if no one explains it to them, right? So if we took the whole setup, laptop, projector, even a generator and a projector screen back to the 1800s in a magical time machine, and we're there, and we ask people, hey, can you change what's on the screen? There's a big prize we're going to give away, right? Bunch of gold, a treasure box, whatever it is. Guess where people are going to line up? They're going to line up in front of the projector screen. They're going to think, oh, I'm going to physically change this projector screen to accomplish the goal. Unbeknownst to them, the easiest, most effortless, least time-consuming way is to change it on the laptop. Now, that makes sense, right? But the real secret is, how do you change what's on the laptop? That is why we created the loop quiz. Take the loop quiz so you know where in your laptop you need to change your codes so that you can project what you want, so you can remove conflict and problems. The loop quiz, if you haven't taken it, is loop.upgrade, which spells as upgrd.com. So loop.upgrd.com. Share with everyone you know. Because if you understand where in your laptop you can fix the code, the mental programs, the repeating programs that are causing problems, you know how you can resolve it. After that, it would change everything. And that would change your buffer. It would change the outcome. It would change everything. Take the loop quiz if you haven't. Take it regularly. Go through the loop sprint, which helps you resolve it in the most efficient way possible. The loop sprint is only 7 days. Experience it. Share with your friends. And in the next episode, we're going to talk about something, well, I'm not actually going to tell you. It's going to be a good one. Stay tuned.